We are joined on Issues and Interviews with Kieran Michael Lalor on Hudson Power Broker Channel. I'm going to say Congresswoman-elect Claudia Tenney, and also Congresswoman Claudia Tenney. Thanks for joining us, Claudia. How are you?
Great, thank you. It's a little stressful, but it's exciting.
It is exciting. I am sure it is stressful. It's hard to find information about your race. You are, of course, in this neck-and-neck battle in New York's 22nd Congressional District, which is the greater Utica area. Is that accurate to say?
That is, Utica and Rome and everything in between.
Okay.
And then a little bit of Oswego County, all the way from Lake Ontario to Pennsylvania border.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And Herkimer County as well, the southern, south part of Herkimer, all of the lower half, and the other half is Elise Stefanik.
Oh, okay. So you're bordering on her district. Okay, that's good. Puts it in perspective. And on election night, which is exactly 4 weeks ago now at this point, Tuesday, on election night, you were a big winner. You were up by tens of thousands of votes, and now it's down to a handful of votes. Give us a little bit of background and where we stand right now, Claudia.
Yeah, election night, we were up 28,400 and some votes, which we knew there were a lot of absentees coming in that would probably favor the Democrats because of the huge influx of absentees coming in. So we figured we needed a cushion, and we thought 28,000 would be sufficient. And throughout the process, about 3-1, the absentee ballots broke for the Democrats. And we started really looking into this. We knew that there were going to be issues. We had thought about suing Governor Cuomo after the executive order in August, which allowed for not just no excuse absentee balloting, but also they created an online portal that would allow anyone to go in unverified and order absentee ballots. So all you needed was the name and address and a social security or a date of birth, which everyone has. You can just go on the Board of Election, and any data site has it, and order absentee ballots. And we have evidence that that was done. A number of people have contacted us over the last few weeks saying they did not order an absentee ballot, but they got one in the mail. Now, a lot of people don't even know the difference between an absentee, or they figured everybody was doing mail-in ballots. So this is where we have we're looking into it. So, we lost our lead. It came down to about 100 votes. The boards of elections were overwhelmed by this executive order from Cuomo. And as you know, like most things in Albany, there were no committee hearings. There was no input from experts in the public. There was no input from the legislature. He just did this, I think, modeled on some of the other vote harvesting states and other states across the country that favor Democrats. As you know, they usually win on process, not on policy. Right. And so this was something that created a huge problem for boards of elections. And one thing I say to people is, don't go with your pitchforks and scream necessarily at the people at the Board of Elections. They went from having and processing about 7,000 to 8,000 absentee ballots in our district in a typical congressional race to over 70,000. Plus, in an election year with a presidential year, you had a lot of people showing up at the polls. So there were a lot of affidavit ballots that were out there too. So the boards of elections never got the resources that were promised to them by Governor Cuomo. We're in the midst of this terrible pandemic and the crisis and shutdowns and loss of revenue to the state. And so, the boards of elections have been forced in these arcane timelines with legal rules. And it's been very, very difficult for them to produce, credible results. So each day and each time we go into court, you're getting different numbers. And so at the close of the end of the last county that counted, which was Chenango County, they were delayed in counting because their entire computer system was hacked. And they were down from October 15th until after Election Day. Wow. So they had problems with their entire computer system. They were delayed in being able to even do their absentee counts. And so once that was done, we looked like the winner by, about 106 votes. And then these numbers just kept coming in and changing. And there's a new nuance in the law that was added by Governor Cuomo known as cures. So if somebody makes a mistake on their absentee ballot, instead of it just being thrown out, that person, the board now has an additional burden of notifying that person. And they have a certain number of days to come in and sign it or correct it, their ballot. You don't get to do that if you vote on Election Day or vote by provisional ballot, which is, again, another unfairness, maybe an equal protection issue for voters. And again, this all goes back to a terrible order by Governor Cuomo and the fact that we still in New York do not have a valid voter ID system, which protects the integrity of each one of us. And if there's one thing my race shows, and it's a close race, is how important that is to, to making sure that each one of us has the right to vote, and that right to vote is secured and not taken by somebody else. And it shows in a close election, we have people who are deceased who are included in the counts. We have, obviously we had the hack. We've had a number of people that supposedly did provisional ballots who we've contacted in person who are willing to sign affidavits stating, not only did I not vote by absentee, I did not go to the polls for various reasons. One woman was 95 years old. She's unable to get to the polls and she's unable to walk. So somebody showed up portraying themselves as this woman and voted. I mean, all kinds of irregularities, all of this pressure being put on the boards. And now this judge is put under pressure to try to make, sort this out. And so we are at the stage now where within the counts, they're showing that I'm up 12 votes, which we're not even absolutely sure that's correct. But I'm up 12 votes. Included in that count are over 400 candidate objections from both sides. So the judge used this so-called O'Keefe method, which is a little unusual. What it does is when one of the candidates objects to a ballot, instead of that ballot being set aside, the person at the Board of Elections has to photocopy that ballot, put it in a PDF file for the judge, and count the ballot. So it's actually counted, even though it could be taken out later. So later on, if the judge deems that that ballot is, our objection is sustained, and the ballot has to come out, he actually has to change the number on the total tally and remove that from the count. So that's a little bit unusual, and that has added a lot of burden on the boards. It's not something they're used to. Most of them didn't comply exactly with the procedures. Most of them didn't really understand the executive order. Yeah. And so that's why you're getting this all this controversy over Sticky-gate. That we put a Post-it note on it and the sticky note fell off, and and everybody, it's just been everything that could go wrong has gone wrong here in terms of administrative issues. Another big issue that I think is really important is that one of the things that just about most of the boards of elections did, and another thing that makes the voting process really suspect, is there is a date when absentee ballots need to be postmarked, and a lot of the boards, including 2 or 3 of them, actually threw out the outer envelope that has the postmark. So when our canvassers were in our witnesses at the canvassing were going through and making objections, they're like, where's the outside envelope? Was this timely? And they said, no, we threw it out. They could provide no proof that that ballot came in. So we made challenges to those as well. So, I don't know what the judge is going to do with it, but, I feel like as a litigant, we sued the administrators, the boards of election, their respondents in this case. They, we shouldn't have to lose our objection because they failed to comply with their side of it. So, and they can't prove that this ballot was received on time. And by the way, we did bipartisan objections. So there are Democrat objections and Republican objections because they can't prove that the ballot was timely. So that's just a nutshell of where we are today. The judge is going to consider motions and make a ruling, I think, by December 7th. And then will probably be appealed by one side or the other. And then we're going to maybe be going back to a recount or recanvass. We're not really sure at this point.
So
it's going to be very close.
You'll probably know the winner by what, the 4th of July?
Well, it's interesting because Marionette Miller Weeks, who is the now certified winner of the Iowa 2nd District, has been certified by a 5-0 decision of the Iowa State Board, has indicated that the Democrats and Nancy Pelosi are going to go through the House administration and challenge that ballot or challenge her win, which means they could go to a complete hand count, which means this could be months and months or whatever. And then even if Marionette Miller Weeks comes out with more votes, she could potentially be removed and have or not seated, and the one with less votes seated because the Democrats control Congress. This is how important this is. When I tell people you got to vote, you're on our team or you're not. A lot of people are like, oh, but Brindisi's bipartisan. I'm like, yeah, he's really bipartisan. He puts out thousands of bills, but his record's not bipartisan. The guy is left of AOC when it comes to his actual voting record. And because he has so much money, he can manipulate the message. I've had $46 million spent against me in this district alone, which is more than has ever been spent against any candidate in upstate New York history in our area. I mean, it's just unprecedented. So we had a lot to overcome with a lot of the negative ads, and we never had nearly the resources. So again, Pelosi could actually seat the non-winner. This was done in 1984. There was a situation where an Indiana candidate, I think it's 1984 or 94. I think it was a Indiana candidate, 84, I think, was the Democrats were in control of the House. They actually seated the non-winner, who was not certified by the state in Indiana. And that's when Newt Gingrich, they stormed out of the Capitol, and he kind of rose to fame and eventually, became the first Republican speaker in 55 years back then. So now, though, because the votes are so close, if they were to try to do this with Nancy Pelosi, it could actually make it a real political hornet's nest for some of those marginal Democrats who want to get reelected again in 2022.
Right. That's such a good point. And it's amazing. I think about, Claudia, to get on the ballot, you and I have to get 500 Republican signatures, so many conservative signatures.
Well, 1,250 in a congressional race.
And if somebody signs my petition and they put Joe Smith and then they put their town as Wappinger Falls, which is the postal address, not the town,
right.
Wappinger, that signature is no good. It's invalid. So it's such a high bar in that situation at the Board of Elections to get on the ballot for a signature to be valid. But then when it comes to the voting, it seems like it's the Wild West. All of those issues that you mentioned, dead people voting, equal protection issues, it sounds like you're just a microcosm of everything the president is going through in the swing states. It's a total mess. And I think it's chaos by design. I don't think it's an accident that we got to this.
I think you're right. I agree with you. And I think one of the interesting things about my race, as much as I don't want to be the poster child for bad elections, similar to the president's race, I think my race could help provide, for states that are interested in solving this, it could provide a model for what not to do and how to help these boards of election. I mean, I was on the phone with a couple different commissioners, the Republican commissioners, and even some of the Democrat commissioners. These people are so overwhelmed. They can't handle it with these arcane deadlines. And so I don't know if New York State is ever going to have the will to challenge Andrew Cuomo, or, we got slaughtered in the Senate. And also in the, we know what the numbers are in the Assembly, as you and I served together. But, at some point, when are we going to wake up and realize that our system looks like a third world voting system, and you get more efficient results coming out of countries, that don't have anywhere near the sophistication that we do? And honestly, I look at some of these. I mean, a lot of my constituents think, oh, you should look into Dominion. Of course, we'll look into that. We haven't seen any evidence of it. But I got concerned when one of the boards of election commissioners said, well, I wouldn't rule that out. And I was like, oh, my God, I mean, we just about have everything that could go wrong. And it's only magnified because it's a close race. Think about how much this is going on in races that aren't that close.
Right.
And just think about how much potential ballot harvesting is going on with the Democrats. If we were to go to a 100% mail-in system, for example, like they do in the state of Oregon, where it's impossible to win, a district there if you're a Republican, because, Republicans like to vote in person. But if you're going to extend these deadlines, we can come in and cure, we can come in and do that, that puts us at disadvantage. But it's something we've got to fight for in New York. And maybe, I know, they say we do all these independent commissions and all that, but maybe it's something they could really look at to really make it fair, because honestly, the Democrats have a lot of primaries in New York City and in other areas. They may not want to be subject to this either. So that might be a way for us to get it fixed in New York State. As you know, it's very tough as a Republican, to get any meaningful legislation. I mean, we just get everything shoved down our throat as upstaters. So, it's interesting. It's interesting, but I think a lot of people realize your vote really does count. And this shows that your vote counts, and that your vote potentially could be undermined. I mean, there are equal protection issues here that, somebody can come in and say they're a 95-year-old woman, and I don't know who this person was, and get to vote for her. And what if, if I didn't have a close race, that ballot would have been cast.
Right. One observation I've made with your situation and the Trump situation is, once you get that ballot into the pile of votes, that's very easy to do, right? It was very easy to impersonate grandma and come in as that 95-year-old woman. Once the vote is
you're right, and you can't take it out.
It's almost impossible to pull it out. And you get thousands in there that are no good. You have to go through one by one. The president is learning this. I think you're learning it. It's incredible. So there's a lot of incentive to do everything you can to just shove in invalid votes, because the burden is on you to pull out the bad ones.
Right. One of my former colleagues, who didn't serve with you but served with us, said, why don't we go back to the mechanical voting machine, where you just have, make sure it's operating. And so you don't have to send your results to some other countries, which is apparently what we do, or put the chip in the back. And, I honestly, like, I'm not a high tech person. You might be, but when that chip goes into the Board of Elections and somebody puts it in the computer, I mean, at that point, what if that person knows enough how to operate the chip? How do we know they're not going to change the votes? And where's this verification system? I mean, supposedly there's a chip in the machine and a chip that gets taken to the board, but I don't really know any of that, and I don't know if it's really happening. But I remember the good old days. You walk in, you vote on the mechanical voting machine, and then at 9 o'clock, the election commissioners go back and they go 79 for this column, and they read it down, and they could make mistakes and transposition, but you never have to worry about the Dominion issue. You don't have to worry about Chinese hacking or Russian hacking or whatever it might be, or Democrat hacking. Just kidding. But I mean, it's just one of those things or Republican hacking possibly, down in in the southern tier maybe, or in the city where we really don't have too many races other than our great friend Nicole, who has been able to pull it out as member elect. So I'm really excited about her too. Yeah. And Andrew Garbarino. Forgot about him.
You're right. He
used to sit behind me.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah. Well, I was over with the Long Island people for some reason. Central New York and Long Island I picked up their accent,
No, I don't think so. I
don't talk like that. Claudia.
Yeah. So go ahead.
No, anything. Go.
Yeah, so what do you think is going to happen? I mean, what is the real timetable? I know you said December 7th, the judge is going to make his decision, but whoever is not successful with that judge is going to appeal. I mean, could this get to the Supreme Court? Could your case get to the Supreme Court?
Well, it's interesting. I don't know. One of the problems of this is potentially you could get into federal court. And that would be a strategy because honestly, the Democrats control who seats a House member. And it would be, they could actually, if the House administration decides to intervene, they make the rules. They could go to force a hand count if they wanted to. Again, I said, it was different when the Democrats had such a substantial majority in the House. But now with it so close, and with two women in these close races, like me and Marinette Miller-Weeks, the two of it, to go after two women and unseat them or to seat, to go through what they're doing, that could be a potential issue as well. Who knows? But politically, it could potentially go to Supreme Court. It just depends on, what the judge does, what the appellate court does. If we end up in the state court of appeals, I don't really know at this point. But it could be, we could be another month.
And if the president's cases get to the Supreme Court, could that potentially impact you if there was a precedent based on a presidential on equal?
Well, and we got to the federal court. Yes, right now we're in state court, so we're dealing with state court precedent. So, the state court precedent. There's a lot of it. I mean, we're making arguments based on state law, and it's really a lot of what it is just trying to figure out. Supposedly the Board of Elections gave their last final official tally. So they've done this like twice or three times now. Right. So we're hoping that, that we don't know really what happens next. If we went back to a hand count, then you would get into each ballot on the machine. They take them out of the machine and go one by one, which I don't know how long that takes. That could probably, there's 300,000 votes here. So it's a lot, maybe 310,000 votes, which is it's the biggest turnout we've ever had.
I believe that.
And because of the absentees. So there's like 70-something thousand absentees. We see in the provisional ballots, what's interesting is the Board of Elections rejected a lot of people who walked in who were, for example, registered voters for a long time at their address. One of them was actually a well-known doctor in our region who contacted me and said, they said I wasn't registered. I filled out one of those provisional ballots and I went through the provisional ballots rejected by both the Republican and the Democrat Board of Election Commissioners. I checked it out, and yes, he was rejected, and we looked him up, and his serial number, his registration were all validated by the state board, so he shouldn't have been rejected. And we found hundreds and hundreds of those, so potentially those could come back in as well. There are people who were not given their right to vote.
That's amazing. Claudia Tenney, incredible stuff. You're really at the forefront. I'm sorry that you're going through this. I'm happy that you are the person because, like the president, you are a fighter. You are scrappy. You're going to fight to make sure everybody's vote that should have been cast will be cast. And I wish you all the best in your endeavor there. Give us your website so people can support.
Yeah, it's Claudia at ClaudiaForCongress.com. We would love to have support. We need the help, prayers too. The Democrats have complete. They have Perkins Coie, by the way. The Russian dossier creators are representing them, which we
Wow.
think is kind of funny. So we are against them. We've got a much smaller legal team. We think they're doing a good job, but we have to pay for the legal team, and we're fighting it out though. I mean, we're always outgunned as Republicans. We always have good policy. We've got to. If anyone wants to help, again, it's Claudia for Congress. And again, congratulations to you, and good luck to you and your family. I watch you and share everything on Facebook. You do a great job.
Thanks.
You're my hero down in the Assembly. I know that I can rely on you to make the tough votes and hold everyone accountable. And thank you for not voting for the bail reform.
Yeah. Yes.
I think there's only
giving Cuomo all the executive power for the pandemic.
Yeah, and I agree. And that too. I mean, it's just we've got to fight this, and I hope more Democrats. I've seen a couple that have kind of looked like they're inching towards supporting us, but this is our country's system of government under attack by this governor, and I just hope more people stand up and follow your lead. But thanks again. God bless your family. Merry Christmas. I'm sure it's fun with all those kids. I'm hoping someday I can have a bunch of grandchildren again.
How was your son as we wrap up here? Your son?
Oh, he's doing great. Yeah, he's still a captain in the Marine Corps, and I'm not sure what he's going to do. How much longer he's going to stay in. He may stay. He gives me different conflicting views all the time. But he loves the Marines, loves serving, and he was here for election night, and he's nervous about the counts too. But anyway, thanks for asking, and I just want to say thank you for giving me the time, and we'll keep you posted. I'll keep you updated, but that's the whole story where we are now, and it's just been tough to get a real straight answer for us, which is why I want to make sure everybody knows where we are.
Yeah, this should be a movie one day. I think this.
Thanks.
The movie ends with you getting sworn in as a member of Congress.
I like that movie. Me with Nicole and Andrew Garbarino, my former colleagues from the Assembly.
There you go. All right, Claudia Tenney. Good luck. Good fight there. All the best.
Thanks.